Every year in the United States of America, the strongest nation in the world and a self-professed force for moral good in the world, 30,000 Americans are killed by firearms every year. 30,000. And that includes homicides, suicides, and accidents. Another estimated 100,000 Americans are shot every year and injured that do not result in death. So just think about those numbers. It means that every 7 to 8 years, 1 million Americans are shot by firearms. That's a huge physical cost, of course, and financial cost to America. Think of the cost of that number of homicides in our healthcare system. 100,000, 1 million in 7 to 8 years ambulance rides. 1 million families grieving. 1 million shattered bones. 1 million shattered organs. 1 million shattered dreams. 1 million shattered lives. The cost is tremendous. If there were another disease that had that many victims in any 1-year period or 10-year period, it would be a national catastrophe. In order to understand the causes of violence in America, I believe that we have to really refer to what I call the unholy trinity in America, the three abiding sins of poverty, racism, and violence. Each of those causes contributes to the 1 million shootings that we have in a 7 to 8 year period. Take the first, the sin of poverty, and we can see how this relates to the uprising, the riots in Baltimore that happened earlier this year. Baltimore, a major city in America, has an immense divide between wealth and poverty. All cities have a gap between the haves and the have-nots. But in Baltimore, the gap is more than twice that of New York City. 14 neighborhoods in Baltimore have a lower life expectancy than that of North Korea. 8 neighborhoods in Baltimore have a lower life expectancy than that of Syria, and Syria is at war. That kind of grinding poverty builds resentment, and it causes many social problems. That's the first of the unholy trinity. The second is racism. Even today, for all the strides that we have made in the last 50, 60 years, there have been numerous studies by social scientists that point to the persistence of racism and how racist attitudes contributed to a feeling of fear and at least thoughts about the criminality of a person. Study after study have shown that even the mere presence of a black male will elicit in many, many Americans thoughts of fear, of violence, and of criminality. That those persistent racist attitudes play into many of the instances of gun violence that we have in America, especially in our cities. The third of that unholy trinity, after poverty, after racism, is Americans' propensity to violence since the beginning of this nation as a means of solving grievances and as a way of putting forward personal or social ideals. I remember in the run-up to the 2003 Iraq War and how Americans were deeply involved in that debate on whether or not we should invade Iraq 2 years after the 9/11 incidents in New York City. And in the midst of that debate, we became very aware that almost all of the historic Christian denominations said this is not a justifiable thing, and many, many countries in the world. The then Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, said at a conference at the time, "If all you have is hammers, all you see is nails." His point was very clear. If you put your trust in violence and instruments of violence to aggrieve or to assuage your grievances, then you will see the problem as only solvable by violence. Why is the first choice violence? Why isn't violence the last choice? But since the beginning of our nation, we have had a propensity to reach for the gun, to reach for the firearm in a tense situation. That unholy trinity, poverty, racism, and violence, is a big cause of the 1 million shootings we have in this nation every 7 to 8 years. But we as Christians have another trinity, the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. As we Christians worship our God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and we practice in our daily lives the redeeming, the creating, and the sustaining qualities of the Holy Trinity, then perhaps we can get beyond the unholy Trinity and heal the unholy Trinity that is affecting so many of us, resulting in gun violence.